Starting now and over the next 3 units, we're going to have 3 bonus videos related to the language learning tripod.
This is based on an article by Steve Kaufman, someone that we both really admire and we follow. He's the creator of lingq.com, lingq.com, which is fantastic for learning reading in any language. He wrote this article quite a while ago, and it's about the 3 things that are, in his opinion and our opinion, the absolute necessities for learning a language.
Yeah, I mean, you were the one who turned me on to this one, and I had not heard of it before. And when you showed it to me, I looked at it and I was like, this really does apply. The times where I was most successful with my Chinese acquisition were when I had these 3 points really in order, and when they got out of order was when I was, not making too much progress.
So we're going to split this up into 3 different videos, and we're going to chat about each of these 3 parts of the tripod individually. So number 1 is attitude. Attitude is definitely an incredibly important part of learning a language, especially one as time-consuming as Chinese, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that attitude, the first thing you got to recognize about it is that you are a language learning machine. It's not like, this is something you can't do, which is actually sort of something I thought about myself. When I was in 7th grade, I'd done pretty well in elementary school, math and social studies. I got pretty good grades. And then we had to take exploratory language classes, Spanish and German and whatever. And I remember just being in the classes and being like, this is not up my alley. This is not as easy for me to catch on to as, say, a social studies class. And so I thought, I must just be bad at language. But really what was happening was language is not meant for the classroom, right? So the attitude should be 200,000 years of evolution of language. We're pretty good at it. And it's not like there wasn't nonverbal communication before then. So right off the bat, you should have confidence that you can acquire language for sure.
Well, I was kind of the opposite. In school, I was actually pretty good. Right? I did French and Spanish, and I did really well, like without much effort, right? So that gave me like a false idea about how it is to learn a language properly. So I went into learning Chinese, technically the first language I properly had a go at. And I was really overconfident. And I had like a rude awakening, like about a year into my studies. I haven't made any progress. Like I'm just learning in the way that I'm learning to pass exams. I'm just learning facts about Chinese. I'm not actually able to speak or write or anything like that.
Exactly.
So mine was kind of worse than yours. So I thought I was good.
Right,
I thought I was like really natural and amazing, and then I was like, I actually am doing worse than most other people, So my attitude took a massive hit. And the first major point of attitude is cultural weightlessness, which I love this phrase just in general, cultural weightlessness.
Yeah.
So essentially it is not putting too much ego in your own sense of culture, and like basically being open to other cultures is essentially what it is, and not focusing so much on the negatives, right?
Well, yeah, it's definitely a part of it. And I think that the other thing about it is that you always have to remember, for any long project like Chinese, like learning any language really, but especially Chinese, is that if you find the negatives to be such an important part of your day-to-day, then you're naturally going to have a part of you going, then why am I bothering to learn this language, right? Because what am I going to do? So I learned this language so that in the end I can talk to these people I really am not enjoying, right? But that doesn't mean that there aren't choices you can make about where you put your attention, right? So it's like you can choose to focus on the negatives, or you can choose to focus on the positives. And I would never say to anybody, don't focus on any negative. That would be ridiculous.
No,
but
if you try to ignore it, you'd lose your mind.
It's the ratio, right? It's the ratio. And so take, for example, a small thing that a lot of foreigners don't like so much is they're like, okay, well, I don't like it when Chinese people spit on the ground. And there's reasons for this that are related to Chinese traditional medicine, whatever. But it's also changing. Younger people aren't doing it as much. But you look at that and you go, oh, it's so gross because we don't do it in my culture. But it's like, at the end of the day, you can also just choose to look at the negative thing and have a little bit of compassion for it. Just go, what was China like 50 years ago? What kind of upbringing do people have to go through? I'm not saying that means that you should always let people do things you find disgusting around you. I'm just saying that it's a way to approach it that makes you feel a bit better about it. And then, of course, the positives. We've asked our students. I mean, like, can you remember any of the things that our students have said about what they like about China? Because it's been, like, very consistent answers.
Yeah. People listen to opinions, right? I mean, people like coming from the West, like, you're used to being ready to do battle with someone if you have a differing opinion. Yeah. Especially on, like, politics or anything sensitive like that, or religion or something like that. But over here, it's just the Chinese people tend to, I mean, the people that I've met anyway, tend to just be like, okay, I think this certain way. And you'll be like, well, I think this other way. And they'll be like, oh, really? They'll sit there and listen.
Yeah, it's almost like they go, hey, let me put on this. It's like, I'm going to put on the jacket called Your Opinion. I'm just going to see what's it like to be you. You know, like, it's like, I'm going to try this on, like, see how this goes, right? Because my Chinese friend said to me the other day, we're very much like shui, water. Like, we want to conform to the situation and see what it's like and see how we feel in that fit, so to speak. And I thought that was a pretty cool way of thinking of it. And so when you look at something like that, just choose to focus on it a bit more. If you choose to focus on it a bit more, you'll end up enjoying your time more and feel like the goal is worth it. You know what I mean? Because if you can speak Chinese really well, you get to have all these conversations with people who will actually listen.
Yeah.
Right? So.
And also, like, you know, whatever you want to say about China or Chinese people or Chinese culture, whatever, if you want to say, if you're thinking about saying stuff like that's negative about it, I always have a trump card, which is there is almost zero violent crime here. Right?
Yeah,
like,
that's
so,
a great thing.
Sorry, like that sort of beats everything else. Like where I'm from in England, or like it's a lot like this in lots of places in Europe, a lot of places in the West, America, even Canada, right? They have like there's a lot of places you can't walk the streets, or at least it's very risky to walk the streets.
I used to live in North Philadelphia. It was risky.
Yeah, you have to think about what you're doing, where you are, who you're with, you know, and you just don't have to do that here, you know, which is fantastic. You know, cultural weightlessness is also about ego, like they're spitting on the floor or whatever negative thing.
Yeah, so my culture's better.
So my
now.
culture's superior. No, it's not. It doesn't work like that, right? Focusing on the good things will make you want to get involved with the language because you want to get involved with the people. And the other aspect to attitude that's really important is confidence, right? Which is kind of a catch-22, isn't it? Because, you know, it's like we have this doubt about ourselves. So, for example, most of you learning Chinese, watching this course, it'll be your first time learning a language. Right? You've probably never done it before properly as an adult. Learning a language is different for your mother tongue as Chinese. As an adult is a different ball game. And so therefore you have this thing in your mind that's just like, well, yeah, I'm sure I could learn a few things, but I could never speak anywhere close to resembling fluency or a native speaker. But that's not the case.
Yeah, it's just a matter of steps. It's just steps. There's more steps in Chinese than there, because you said you were good at French and Spanish when you were in school.
Well, I was good at learning it in a school way.
But even so,
passing exams and stuff.
Yeah. But even so, French and Spanish, for example, they have a bunch of things that are from day one already established that you understand from English, mostly related to the writing system. And so Chinese has some more steps, but there is no individual step along the way that, you know, even a person of well below average intelligence can't do. It's just a question of continuing to do it over a long period of time, which, you know, so we'll see how these things all relate back to each other by the end of the third video. So
we'll see you after the next unit for the second part of the language learning tripod, attentiveness.